Well, good evening, y'all. I've got me a brand new little test tool, and for 20 bucks, it is a bargain for what it can do for us. So if you own a Workhorse chassis, I believe it would be very important to carry this with you in your toolbox because it's so handy. I'm going to show you several different scenarios where this could come into play and be useful. Of course, what it is just a relay tester. It looks just like a relay, except it's got a little toggle switch inside of it instead of actual relays and coils and points. So first of all, I'm going to do a test, show you how to test for a fuel pump, a failed fuel pump or a failed relay in your fuel pump. But of course, if you watch my past videos, you've already got spare relays, don't you? Somewhere in your RV, you should carry a spare fuel pump relay and at least one of these relays. Now, these are all three the same part number. Now, that's your auxiliary fan relay, that's your starter relay, that's your air conditioner clutch relay. In a pinch, you can swap these around anyway. You know, if your start relay went bad, just pull your air conditioner clutch relay and put it in here, and hopefully that'll get you started and going. But we're going to imagine, I'm going to simulate a bad fuel pump relay to show you what will happen. So I'm going to pull this out, and we're going to imagine it has just died on us. So that's going to produce for us a crank no start condition. So let's go inside the RV. Okay, so we're in the RV. Now, if you ever have this scenario, you go to crank and it won't start. It'll sound like this. That's a bad sound. You never want to hear that. But the first thing I would suspect is fuel or fuel pump. Now, for me, I'm spoiled. I added myself a fuel gauge. So when I go key on, I should have at least about 50 psi. And I see, pardon, let the beeping get done. Okay, beeping's over with. So I see I have 0 psi. So immediately I know something's wrong with my fuel pump. Either my fuel pumps went bad, I blew a fuse, bad relay, something. So that's where I'll begin. Now, if you don't have one of these, at least carry with you one of these little testers. I'll put a link to this below the video. They're like 29 bucks on Amazon. So one of the two you need to carry. In fact, I carry this anyway in my toolbox just as a backup, or if I need to help somebody on the road, I'll be able to screw that into the fuel rail. And just to show you what I'm talking about, here's your fuel rail. This just screws right in here on the Schrader valve, and you can quickly test for fuel pressure. So, you know, it's getting to the point, you know, if I got an RV, it's hard to find people that even want to work on them, and even then, if they have the skill set to figure things out anymore. So it's going to be up to us to fix our own stuff. So I'm hoping these videos will help you out. But then again, you got to carry the appropriate tools. So if you're on the side of the road somewhere or try to leave the campground, you can't go. This will give you ability to do your own testing and get yourself going, troubleshoot the problem, and get it fixed yourself. Now, of course, you can see with my situation, I got a little sending unit on here that sends a signal up to my gauge. All right, so we've confirmed we've got no fuel pressure. Then what's the next step? Well, let's go out here, back out front again, and do a test. So if I had that situation, I had no fuel pressure, first thing I would do, pull my relay. Of course, another thing to do is you also can check your fuse, because right here is your fuse for your fuel pump to see if it's blowed. If it's not blowed, then go after the relay. So then get my little trusty little testing switch here. We'll plug it in, flip on the switch. Let's walk back here. We should be able to hear it run. I can hear it, but you probably can't. Get it humming, so we know the fuel pump is working. In fact, that fuel pump's only about 2 months old. I just put it in. All right, so now let's go inside, see what our pressure shows. Okay, and now you can see we have 59 psi. Even though the engine's not running, we're forcing the fuel pump to run, because normally the fuel pump only engages when you're in crank mode. Then that's when it comes on and stays on for you. Okay, that's test one for that little switch. So another thing, while we're talking about fuel pump, I want to talk about the reason why fuel pressure is so important for us and why you want to monitor it. Because with our 8.1 engine, it's critical to maintain between 55 and 62 psi on the fuel rail. Because if you run this engine lean, you risk pre-ignition. Pre-ignition will knock holes in your pistons. and that's a very expensive endeavor if that happens to you. Average, I think repair price on a rebuilt engine is $12,000 to $15,000, and that would just be a nightmare to happen to you. And it can happen if you don't monitor a few things. One thing you got to monitor is your fuel pressure. Make sure it stays in check. The next thing we got to monitor ourselves is we have to monitor these fuel trims right here. Get it in the shot. There you go. So what we're looking for, because the engine's not running, but you can see my long-term fuel trims, 3.9, 4.7. We want to keep these fuel trims in single digits. And with this is called the Scan Gauge 3. I got a video coming on it soon. It's a very powerful tool. I would recommend. This is a must-have tool. If you want a workhorse with an 8.1 Vortec engine in it, I would not leave town without this tool, or at least the Scan Gauge 2. But the Scan Gauge 3 is far more better. It does a lot more stuff for us. Programmable alarms. It does all kinds of cool stuff. But most importantly is monitoring those fuel trims. If ever you start seeing double digits, if it goes above 10, now if it happens on a bank system, you can run higher trims, maybe even as high as 14 or 15, because the bank system flows more air. If you flow more air, of course you got to flow more fuel. If you got a stock system, you want to see this under 10. But because it maxes out at 25, at that point you can't do no more, and that's when you're going to run lean and bad things start happening. Other things can cause us to run lean, like a vacuum line can come loose. These little rubber tip back here on the back, that can come loose, or sometimes develop a crack. You'll start sucking air there. That will cause you to run lean. Stuff like that can blow up your engine. So very, very important. I'll do more videos on the importance of that. And I did briefly discuss this at the end of my mass airflow sensor cleaning video. If you go toward the end of it, I kind of explain why we don't get a check engine light. You may think, well, if something's wrong with my engine, I'll get a check engine light, then I'll deal with it. Well, no, it doesn't work that way. Workhorse, in their wisdom, turned that stuff off. So fuel trims can go crazy, mass airflow sensor go crazy, have no fuel pressure, you'll still not get a check engine light. So it's up to us to monitor this stuff. All right, let's go back outside and do another test. Okay, let's see what else we can do. Take this off, put the fuel pump relay back in place, got that done. All right, let's test the air conditioner clutch. We're going to see that it works. Put it in here. We know that works. Simple little test. But another really neat test is, say for instance, again, you may have key on and no start, no nothing. So we can test that relay. Get that out. Put this in here. Briefly bump it. See, it cranks the engine over. So we can do that. But I think one of the coolest things is the ability to kick on our auxiliary fans. That could come really handy. And I'll explain why. Let's get this in place here. Alright, so flip on the switch. Alright. I know it's kind of noisy. Alright. So I'm going to flip on the switch. I'm going to go back inside and show you how much air is blowing out. I was really surprised how much air alone those fans can kick out. Because I can feel the air, but of course you can't tell that. So I put a piece of toilet paper. It says blowing. So those fans are pushing through the condenser and then pushing through the radiator and still getting that much airflow. That's pretty impressive. Now let's talk about some scenarios where that could be handy for us. Okay, now let's first talk about when these fans normally engage. There are two things that turn these fans on. One item is the computer itself. If the computer sees the engine reach 221 degrees, it says, hey, we're overheating for whatever reason. The fan clutch is not doing its job. We need to do what we can to cool things down, so it will engage these fans, regardless if the air conditioner is on or off. These will come on. The other scenario where these fans come on is when you have the air conditioner on and then the high side reaches 230 psi. If on the high side hits 235, it engages that also. And that is, let me see down here on our dryer. There it is. See our dryer, and you can see a couple of wires, and there's a pressure switch on top of that dryer right there. that pressure switch is what engages these fans. So that's our two scenarios. So you might also have another situation with these RVs. As they start pushing over 70,000 miles, then the fan clutch between 70 and 90,000 miles, the fan clutch begins to get weak. Because when you get to 205 degrees, that's another reason why you want to, like that scan gauge 3, it gives us a digital readout of what the engine temperature is. That little analog gauge on the dashboard is about useless. It doesn't really tell us exactly what that temperature is. But by having a scan gauge 3, we can digitally know, okay, at 205, we should be hearing that clutch engage and start roaring and pulling the temperatures back down. If you see it's not engaging until 215, 220, then you need to go ahead and get you a clutch on order and get it replaced so it doesn't fail on you. But if you're out, say for instance you're out west and your clutch just fails on you suddenly and you find yourself overheating, that's where the switch could come into play. Because with this, it will give you could call it supplemental cooling. You need to keep your air conditioner off because your air conditioner is just going to induce more heat. But say for instance your clutch has failed and you're running 210, 220 degrees constantly, you can't get the temperature down, but just flip that switch on and those fans will kick in and help keep things down, hopefully at a more normal temperature and not risk causing any damage to your engine. I thought I'd show it to you because I thought that was really cool little device for 20 bucks. Can't be beat. While I'm in here in this fuse box, let me point out another relay. This relay here, that's just for your ABS, so that won't mess you up anyways. This relay can mess you up. If this relay goes bad, you could have a couple different situations. This controls the brake, transmission, shift, interlock. So what that little device does is when you put on the brake pedal, there's a little solenoid on our gear shift column or steering column that allows us to get the gear shift out of park. I'll just show you. So if you have a situation to where you try to get the gear shift out of park and it won't release, all you gotta do is come in here and pull this relay. I'll show you. So I'll pull the relay. Now I'll go into the RV and I'll show you I can take it out of park without touching the brake pedal. So with that relay pulled, you can see my feet are not touching the brake pedal. All I gotta do is lift up and put it in reverse. And I have not touched the brake pedal to do so. But the scenario can happen. We've got a couple of different things that could go wrong. That relay, down in the steering column here, there's a little solenoid. But then that solenoid is attached to our brake switch. Our brake switch is two switches in one. One switch inside the brake switch controls our brake lights. The other one controls this safety interlock. So what can happen is the brake switch can fail. That's what happened to me years ago. I was at a campground, went to leave. I couldn't leave. I couldn't get the stupid thing out of park. And it took me, actually, I think the way I just kept monkeying with it and it finally came out of park. I think I just kept hitting the brake pedal and finally the brake switch made contact and I was able to drive away. But it was intermittent there for a while until I finally figured out what was going on. That drove me crazy. So that's another thing can happen. If your brake switch starts to fail, you will not be able to get your gear shift out of park. But just reach out there, remember this, you can pull that one relay and that'll get you back on the road till you can get time to either check out the solenoid that's in here or replace the brake switch. Fairly common. I've replaced our brake switch probably at, I don't know, 45, 50,000 miles. So that does happen. Oh, again, talking about digital readout. See here what gives me our coolant temperature is 55 degrees. Trans temp is 50. So that digital readout is awesome. So you're driving down the road. When you see 205, you should hear that big fan kicking in, roaring like a truck, pulling that temperatures back down. If it's not kicking in at 205, that's an early warning system. It's telling you, hey, this clutch is about to go. So don't be stranded. Go ahead and order one. Call up Brazzles, get your OEM fan clutch, and get it replaced. And I got a video showing step by step how to change it out. It's not so bad. You can do it yourself. All right, so I'm gonna put everything back the way I found it, and And I'll put this little switch in my toolbox. If I ever need it, I'll have it to be handy. And I'll send you some links here. I'll go in the house and I'll show you exactly a couple of websites you can go to order this switch and how you can save some money. So let me head to the house. Before I head to the house, you may have caught this in the camera shot as I was walking by. And you're going, what's he doing here? What's up with that? Well, I've had this happen to me once before, years ago. These fenders are glued in place, probably with a polyurethane or something like that, and sometimes they let go, and you got to watch them. So on yours, reach around, tug on them, make sure they're good and tight, because if it starts to let loose, you driving down the road on a long trip, it'll get to flapping, and the thing will just snap right off. You'll see RVs like that. Sometimes the fenders broke off of them. So I got me some polyurethane, clamped it on there, let it cure for a couple days, and hopefully that'll be good to go. But something to keep an eye on your, at least I know I see this on the Winnebagos. I don't know if it's other brands are the same way, but something to watch for. Okay, I wanted to insert something here. You see I'm sitting here editing this video, and there's two things I need to mention. One thing is when you go, I'm about to talk about, when you go into the Zorro website to order that switch, you need to create an account, sign in with your email address, and then that way, if you leave the cart be, you'll should get an email later with an extra discount code to save another 15% or so. That's one thing. The next thing I want to point out to you, if you happen to have a 2007 or newer, you may not even have auxiliary fans for the W22 and W24. Workhorse, in their wisdom, they decided around 2007 to leave the fans off, thinking it would be okay. Well, evidently they quickly realized the mistake they made, because then RVs of that vintage in that year, the air conditioners wouldn't perform well enough because they couldn't get enough air across the condenser. So then they later came out with this kit. So in case you don't have auxiliary fans, there's the part number for you right there at Brazel's website, and that will get you what you need. And let me see, I got a PDF file here somewhere. That's not it. Hang on. Yeah, here's a PDF file, and it goes into detail exactly what to do to install it, and how to tie into the current wiring harness, and it ties into the air conditioner clutch and all, so it should work pretty snazzy. So if you're having any air conditioning issues and you do not have auxiliary fans, this may be the fix you're looking for. All right, back to the show. Okay, we're back in the house. Now, my switch, when I ordered it, I got it through eBay. In fact, here's my order right there. It was like 20-something bucks. But now I went to look, and that it's no longer listed on eBay. So I did a little more digging. Actually, I found it cheaper through, was a couple of different ways you can purchase it. Let's see here. I think this one here. Yeah, this here for $14.29. This is from Zorro, and I've ordered from Zorro before. They're a good company. So, but what's cool about this, and I did figure this out by accident. So if you want this the cheapest possible way, go to Zorro, and there's the Zorro's number. I'll put a link to directly to this page, but there's the manufacturer number. It's an IPA 9036-1, because that just gives you the single switch by itself. They also make kits, and I'll show you that also in a second, where you get like a set of 3 different ones. But for our workhorse application, we just really need this one. But what's cool is early this morning, I was just playing around with it, even though I had one, and I went ahead and threw it in my shopping cart. And then about 6 hours later, I got an email with a code. Let me get my email up here. So about 6 hours later, I got an email saying I left something in my shopping cart that they'll give me another 15% off if I want to go ahead and buy it. And so they gave me a code, and I entered that code. And so now when I go to the cart, I can, let me get my right page here. So you can see now I can get it delivered to my house for $17.15. So what a deal that is. But you can see you can buy them several different places, individual. Well, there's where I got it from, Zorro. Here it is, $16.99. You got all these different multiple kits, but there's like a set of 3. You get them on Amazon, and these larger kits for 86 bucks. But for what we need, 20 bucks is all you need to spend. And let me see what else we got. So here is another option if you wanted to get the set of, it's got 3 different ones in it, so that way it'd work with different vehicles. you do have that option. But look, it's 38 bucks. So I'll put that link in there if you rather buy from Amazon. You can do that too. Anyways, I think that will fix you up, make you a great little stocking stuffer here just before Christmas. Thanks for watching. You guys have a blessed day. See you. Bye.